Welcome to Crunch Time Sports, where we bring you the latest sports stories in 30 minutes or less. My name is Matt Weinkoop, and I'm back with my co-host this week, Orlando. Orlando, how's it going?
Good.
We have a lot to talk about today. Obviously, NBA playoffs are really big right now. A lot going on in the NFL world. Baseball. I mean, it's picked up pretty steadily so far. But we want to kind of talk about the NFL first. Just some quick notes. I know we haven't been on for the past few weeks. We apologize for that. We took a week off. Things have just been really busy. End of the semester, all that good stuff with college students. But we're gonna try and stay doing it week by week and see how that goes. But so we're back, and that's all that's important, right?
That's all that matters.
So I guess we'll start in the NFL. Two really big stories the past couple days. The biggest, I think, was the trade between the Eagles and the Browns. The Eagles, I guess, really wanted to move up on the draft board to get to the number 2 pick. As you may already know, the Tennessee Titans had the number 1 pick, and they traded that to the Rams. So the Rams then move up to number 1. So it's obviously the Rams want to take a quarterback. It seems like that's pretty much
rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of need one.
Yeah.
They have, Case Keenum. It's kind of a joke at this point. But yeah, so they moved up to number 1, and the Titans got pretty decent haul back, couple picks. But the Eagles moved up to number 2, and I think that was even more.
That's a big jump.
They moved up to number 2. They weren't that deep, but you can tell they really wanted a quarterback because they traded. The Browns will receive. Or the Eagles will receive the number 1 pick, right? And then the Browns, I don't even know. It's so confusing because there's so many picks. But the Eagles sent 5 draft picks to the Browns. The number 8 pick in the first round, so the first round of this year.
Yeah.
A 3rd round pick, 77th overall. A 4th round pick, 100th overall in this year's draft. And then next year, they get a 1st round pick in 2017.
That's what the Browns got?
Still talking about the Browns here. And a 2nd round pick in 2018. So, right there.
I mean, I guess it kind of shows you the Browns don't want to be taken lightly this season. I think they're really making moves to really establish themselves back into the NFL as a whole and not be the laughingstock of the NFL.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because they have a lot of rich history with the Cleveland Browns. So it looks like they're really mapping it out for the future and seeing exactly what they want. And I think getting RG3 and getting all these picks in is going to help them establish that, for this season and going on forward for the rest of the seasons.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And then in exchange, the Eagles only got obviously the number 2 pick, which was huge for them. But also they got the 4th round pick for 2017. So the Browns gave up almost nothing. I mean,
I think the Browns came out winning.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing about the Browns is a lot of people thought that they might draft a quarterback anyway. But I think at this point, you got RG3. Let's let him have his chance without so much pressure of a quarterback competition. I think he's earned that enough.
Yeah.
I mean, he did win Rookie of the Year a couple years back, and he's had some injuries. But if this is going to be your guy, let him be your guy. Don't push it to where, RG3 is once again have to put himself out and do all this crazy stuff to try and get a job.
I think they want him to be that guy. I think Jackson is going to give him that opportunity to be that guy, and it's his job to lose, I really think.
Right.
I mean, they always need that backup quarterback to see if they can have somebody to back him up because he is injury prone. I mean, I hope he stays healthy this season to see a full season of RG3 and what he can really do. But I think that it's his job to lose pretty much, and I don't think they want to take it away from him.
And look, I mean, I definitely see what the point with you want to have a backup. Obviously, I mean, you have to have a backup on every team. But the way I see it now is they have RG3. There's plenty of options out there in free agency. When I think of a backup quarterback, I really don't like my number 1 backup quarterback to be a guy who has almost no experience.
Yeah.
You don't want to be like, okay, now let's just throw the rookie in the middle of the season when, we're in the midst of a game and they haven't really had that much practice with the system. I like a Brian Hoyer to be my backup. I mean, I know he's not good. I think he's terrible. But I still think if you're gonna have a backup, someone like a Brian Hoyer, Charlie Whitehurst, someone of that type of, grade, I guess, is good for a backup. And the Browns come out on top here strictly because they're going to build so
Yeah.
much of a core of really probably good young players. I mean, they're not even falling that much. They're falling 6
Right.
picks in the draft.
And
That's like nothing.
And I think in their division, it's a little shaky. I mean, it's always very highly competitive with the Steelers and the Ravens, but I think, and of course with the Bengals, I believe, still trying to make that strong playoff run. But I think the division is a little shaky. It's not as strong as it used to be when the Steelers were a powerhouse and the Ravens were a powerhouse. So the doors kind of open a little bit for Cleveland to really reestablish themselves and to kind of turn this thing around. So
yeah, and by no means would I say that the Browns are now a playoff team. I mean, even if they bring in these guys, everybody's got to learn.
I mean, but that's the thing with the NFL. You really never know. I mean, look, we can say that Cleveland came out winning, but let's say the Eagles just get a diamond in this draft pick and just so happen to turn everything around. You never really. I mean, it's a stretch, but you never really know with the NFL.
Yeah, I mean,
which is what makes it exciting.
My thing is they still there was no teams in the playoffs last year other than the Redskins probably that we were like, they don't belong there. So often, there can be surprises in the NFL.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think we have a pretty good grasp on who's going to make it and who's not. I don't see it from the Browns.
I mean,
but I guess you're right.
Nobody thought Tom Brady was going to win how many Super Bowls? I mean, all credit to Tom. That's just the magic of the draft. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, no. I agree with that. I mean, maybe they'll draft the next,
I mean, and who knows?
I think at 8, you got to go with maybe a wide receiver.
And Fitzpatrick is still out there. So what if the Eagles make a move and
sign him? But why would you trade up for 2 then? They traded up for 2. They've said it's for a quarterback.
I mean, you never know.
Because the way I see it is, I believe the Cowboys have the 3rd pick,
right?
And they've been looking for a backup quarterback. But if you and the 2 that are really going to go first are Carson Wentz and Jared Goff.
Yeah.
A lot of people think Goff is more ready right now.
Yeah.
But Wentz has the bigger upside. But apparently, the Eagles seem to think, because the Rams have basically not disclosed any information as to who they're going to draft yet. So the Eagles think, or somehow know, maybe they talked to the Rams, that they want, I think they said they want Goff, and they think they're going to get Goff.
Well, it'll make for an interesting draft day, that's for sure.
But what happens, if the Rams are like, you know what, I'm just going to draft blank, and then that's not who the Eagles wanted.
Or maybe the Rams aren't going for a quarterback, and they just pick up Fitzpatrick. I'm just throwing Fitzpatrick's name out there because he's still in the free agency, and I think he still has a lot to offer. So if the Rams make the move,
I can't say I agree or disagree. The way I feel about Fitzpatrick is, like we've said before, I think what works for him best is being on the Jets.
Yeah.
The Jets need to sign that guy.
But they're still on a standstill, and I don't know if the Jets are waiting for the draft to be over.
But they have no ground to stand on either side. Fitzpatrick's asking for way too much money when he's not getting any other offers. If he was really that highly coveted of a free agent, he would be getting offers, like crazy. But he's not. And the Jets, they're playing hardball, but now DeBrickashaw Ferguson retired.
Yeah.
So they have more money to work around. And plus, I'm hearing that the Jets might trade Muhammad Wilkerson. So that clears up the space,
Yeah.
Just if I'm a Jets fan,
pay the man.
which I am the farthest thing from, but if I'm a Jets fan right now,
well, you're wearing green. That's
going insane just thinking about how we don't still have Fitzpatrick at this point. I think he wants somewhere in the Osweiler money, 17, 18, or
I say pay the man.
Give him 12.
What else are you gonna do? Where else are you going?
Jets are at 8 or 9 or something. So give him a meet in the middle.
What if
he's not that good?
What if the Jets happen to trade spots with the Rams in the draft and end up giving them Fitzpatrick?
But they wouldn't.
I just hypothetically speaking.
You like to just throw around things that I don't think that's going to happen, because I think the Rams really need or want a quarterback, and they're not going to give up that pick, because now that they're up 1 and Eagles are up 2, it seems to me, and I don't think there's that many. I haven't really followed college football too religiously.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's a major fall off once you get past those first 2 in the draft. There's Paxton Lynch, who's supposedly pretty good, a couple other guys, but really, I think there's a big fall off. So once you get past 2, you probably won't see a quarterback
in a rough
drafted
patch
for a while.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Jets certainly have the resources to sign Fitzpatrick, and if not, then I guess you're stuck with Geno Smith.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Maybe Bryce Petty, who's they drafted I think last year.
Yeah.
And he hasn't really played at all. So
sign Fitzpatrick, please.
Yeah. For the Jets' sake, I mean, let's at least keep it competitive, Jets. The Patriots don't have to win every year.
Here we go.
But no. But I really thought, and it ended up being almost, but I really thought last year the AFC East was going to be the division that was so contested, and it didn't end up being like that.
Yeah.
The Jets didn't make it. They almost did on a wild card.
They should have. I think
the
Jets probably should have made it with their record, I would say.
Well, yeah.
Miami didn't really hold much to it, but then you always have the Patriots.
Yeah, the Bills were terrible.
Yeah.
But the Dolphins made some changes, so maybe I don't know, we'll see. But
can we
as of
talk
right now,
about Josh Norman though?
All right, so moving on, I guess Orlando's anxious.
Possibilities, since we're talking NFL here.
So the big news yesterday, other than that trade, which was huge, was that the Panthers rescinded their franchise tag on Josh Norman.
Why?
Which, we don't know
have
why.
no
There
idea.
must have been some either financial or, locker room
Right.
issue. From what I hear, it's financial. They just can't afford him, which I'm not surprised. I mean, he's probably in the top 3 in corners in the league right now.
I'll give you that.
I would say, well, we'll say top 5 because you got, Revis is kind of on the decline, but you still put him up there just out of respect. You got Sherman, maybe Patrick Peterson, but Josh Norman is right up there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I guess they can't afford him. So now it's just as soon as they rescinded that franchise tag, he's a free agent.
Yep.
Which
And
is
I would
crazy.
like if the Raiders would make a move on the man. As a Raiders fan myself, I don't see why not. I mean, you're picking up a lot of defensive players. I think with Woodson retiring, I think you need to fill that void with a younger, more able player, which he obviously has been to the Super Bowl. Hasn't won it, but he knows what it takes. So has Bruce Irving. So they're really stacking up with veterans, and I think this would be a good move. Again, hypothetically speaking, I would love it. But
Yeah, I mean,
it seems like the right fit.
it's like at this point, any team that Josh Norman goes to is a win. Like he's so good that it's just like the fact that the thing is like so everybody was taken off the board. Like even the people that held out a little bit, like a Weddle or something.
Yeah,
they all signed. So now you have Josh Norman basically almost draft time, which kind of causes some chaos because you're thinking about it and you're saying, well, now he's like this big free agent, and it's like maybe teams were going to draft Jalen Ramsey out of I think it's FSU.
Yeah,
and now it's kind of like up in the air, like what's going to happen, because like
I mean I really hope my Raiders make the move. Again, if anybody from Oakland is listening, please sign the man.
And I think he'd be a great fit there.
I think so, with Khalil and Bruce Irvin.
It's a great young defense. I have heard from some people that he wants to be in California.
Hey.
I don't know if Oakland is everyone's idea of California. I think because the 49ers are also interested.
Right, but I think the 49ers are really shaky in their whole rebuilding issue. I think the Raiders at least have some type of stability and show promise for the future.
I mean, I think the Raiders are going to win that division, if I'm being straight up at this point.
I would hope so.
And, I mean, it's about time for them to come back into it. I throw a little support at the Raiders.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I throw a little support at the Raiders. They're kind of my second team. I mean, I love my Patriots, but I like the Raiders. I really like what they've been able to build there.
Yeah.
It's been a long time coming for them. And you got to appreciate what they're trying to put together there. So if you take Josh Norman and put him on that team, I'm not saying that they jump from like a questionable contender to like the next like Super Bowl championship team, but it certainly is a big.
But it puts them in a good spot compared to, let's say, the Broncos that have really let go of a lot of their star defensive players. So.
A couple other teams I've heard for him too. Jaguars, who same thing as the Raiders have kind of been building up to this point where they
kind of have a really powerful offense, which is really surprising. So
and I mean, once again, they made some defensive upgrades too. They got a couple linebackers in there.
Yeah.
I think he would fit really well in there. I mean, a corner pretty much fits in anywhere.
Right. I mean, it also depends on the system because remember Nnamdi Asomugha kind of made a couple of moves late in his career, and it kind of didn't work out in Philly or whatever the case was.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it should be interesting. Other teams, I've heard Giants. I don't see it just because of his beef with Odell.
Right. That would be interesting to see, though.
You just have to sit there and say, let's squash this like men, and let's win some games.
I don't know because Odell's they're both a little diva-ish. Maybe Odell more than Norman.
Yeah,
but
no, totally. I totally agree. But yeah, any team that he goes to, he'd be an asset.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, it's kind of just like I just can't believe it still. I mean, I've heard Buccaneers too, and the Buccaneers are just like the Raiders and the Jags. I think they're still a little further away, but they're right up in the race. So,
well, the Panthers are probably opening up room, and probably I don't know if Luke Kuechly is up for a contract or if he received one recently.
Yeah,
but he's probably more of the heart of that defense than Norman was, so they probably want to keep him steady.
Yeah, I mean,
he did get a couple of good picks this season, so.
Yeah, no, Kuechly's a monster, and I think he's probably top 5 defensive players overall.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at what you want out of a defender, the ideal player and the best players are usually linebackers.
Yeah.
Because they do it all. But, yeah, Kuechly's amazing, and I guess if you can't afford him, you can't afford him. I mean, maybe they'll try to restructure something. I've heard that he might go back to the Panthers too, but it's...
I'm sure he wants to. They just finished getting off that Super Bowl run. So.
Yeah, I mean, I could see him being the type of guy who just wants to go after money.
Yeah.
That's usually. I think that's me just stereotyping corners because every corner does that. Darrelle Revis. I still don't understand how you could leave a Super Bowl championship team and go to the Jets.
He ended up getting the ring, though. Some people just want that ride to the ring. You really can't be mad at him for it. I mean, he's had a long career.
But why not stay and get another one?
I think he really wanted to finish his career.
With the Jets.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would. No, but I get it, I guess. So that, I guess we'll wrap up the NFL talk. Anything else you want to shout out?
Sign Josh, please. Oakland, if you're listening.
Oakland, if you're listening. We have demands from the fan base here.
Yes.
Let's sign Josh Norman. Maybe, if the Patriots just want to spend a little money.
Could we not, please?
That'd be great. But yeah. So let's move on. We'll talk some NBA. Maybe I'll talk some MLB at the end, just because you're kind of, he knows his MLB. He knows his MLB well enough to guess between actors and baseball players.
Something.
But there's been some stuff going on. But let's talk NBA playoffs. So a couple series. The first one I want to address is the Spurs and the Grizzlies. I don't know if you've been following this. The Spurs are just shellacking the Grizzlies at this point. Now, the Grizzlies are very injured right now. They've lost a lot of their players, which definitely hurts, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's just not even been fun to watch
at this time in the season.
It's not even been fun to watch.
Anytime you go against the Spurs, they're a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
They are just unstoppable. And once they get into the swing of things, there really is no team that could interfere with them. Whatever they want to do, they're going to do. They're going to impose it on your team. And with a team like the Grizzlies, you're really not going to have much of a chance.
Yeah, the Spurs are the second best team in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
Record-wise, second best.
Record-wise.
The Grizzlies are injured. And frankly, it's just not even a matchup. They showed on, I think it was ESPN yesterday, they were talking about how boring of a series it was. I don't remember who it was, but it was like a Spurs legend was actually like yawning and almost nodding off during the game.
The Spurs have never played like fancy in your face basketball. That's
I know,
the
but
thing.
It's just not even fun.
But if you take the time to look at the mechanics and like how that ball moves around the court, really
you appreciate what the Spurs have been able to accomplish. I mean, God, they've been in the playoffs for how many years? Tim Duncan's been just that guy for years. I mean, he's kind of coming down now. But they basically were like, let's just take one of the best players of all time and replace him with someone who has the potential to be just as good.
They have a good farm system.
So, it seems like that series is a runaway.
Yeah.
And I want to maybe, before we move on to the other series, I want to get your opinion. So the NBA, and I believe the NHL, but we don't really talk about the NHL that much. The NBA does 7-game series throughout the playoffs.
Yeah.
The MLB does just a 5-game to start, or best of 5.
Yeah.
And then 7 games. What do you think is better? Like, do you think the NBA in the first round should just do a 5-game series?
That's interesting because you want to. They probably. Well, first of all, it's probably business. So they figure they have 7 weeks of time slots and TV slots that they have space, you know, to use. Injury-wise and health-wise, you would like to see your star players rested. You know, if you can clean them up in 5 or whatever the case is, then do it. But if you're that good, you can clean them in 4 and rest. The next couple of weeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I get the idea of just having like 5 games, which kind of on paper sounds good. I don't know if they'll go for it just because you will lose some money in those time slots that the NBA has booked. And like I said, if you want to be the big man on campus, win the 4 and then rest, the next couple of days that you were supposed to play,
Yeah. I think 5 games works. I know money-wise, like everywhere.
Yeah.
But if you take that out of it, think about it this way. There's no chance that who are the Warriors playing? They're playing the Rockets. The Rockets are terrible this season.
Pretenders, that's what they are.
Basically. The Warriors are going to destroy them. Same thing with the Spurs.
Without
they're going to beat
Steph
the Grizzlies.
Curry.
All 4 games, they're going to sweep it. Like, that's it. That's how it is in most playoff first rounds. I mean, unless there's some upsets. So I don't see why not just do a 5-game in the first set.
I guess if you're just talking the first round, then 5 games sounds.
I mean, in baseball, they do the division series 5 games, then championship series and the World Series are 7.
Right.
That works. And for travel, I mean, travel-wise, you only have to travel. Maybe if it goes to 5, you have to travel twice.
Yeah.
If there's a 7-game series, you have to travel 3 times. I think.
Yeah, it's
or
tough.
something crazy like that. So it's a lot, and it's a lot on the players, and I think that's kind of crazy. So right now, the playoffs. I'll just run down the teams that are in it, maybe, because we are getting close to time, and I maybe want to touch on some baseball. So we have the Cavs and the Pistons. Who's going to win that series? The Cavs.
I would hope the Cavs do. I mean, the Pistons, they do show up every year, but they just don't seem to finish. I don't know what their deal is. So.
The Cavs have won the first 2 games, by the way. So I think that's pretty much done. Raptors versus Pacers actually has turned out to be a decent series.
Yeah.
It's 1-1 right now. I do think the Raptors are going to end up winning just because they have a really good team.
They have a lot of momentum building from last season coming into this one.
Yeah,
they have a lot behind them.
I mean, they're the 2 seed.
Yeah,
so,
but I mean, Paul George is putting up a fight, and he has come back tremendously from his injury.
That's the thing about Paul George is he's the entire Pacers team, and that's the problem. And that's what happens when with a player like that, But it is what it is. Go down a little bit. Heat versus Hornets. The Heat look really good.
Yeah.
It looks like maybe the Heat might be the only team that can challenge the Cavaliers in the East.
Most likely, just because those guys know LeBron, and pretty much LeBron is the Cavs compared to JR and everybody else who has been playing very well. But yeah, the Heat does seem to be a good challenge for the Cavs, and maybe we'll get to see that.
Yeah, and they have the Heat, have some good young players. Obviously, they still have Dwayne Wade, who's I mean, he's probably lost a step at this point, but he's still really, he's a professional.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. You have Hassan Whiteside. I can't remember the other guy's name, but they have a really good team, and I think that would be a great matchup. And the media would love it. They'd play that up so much. LeBron going versus against the Heat, they would be just so happy. So then you have the Hawks and the Celtics. The Celtics look really bad in Game 2. They were terrible shooting-wise. I thought the Celtics were one of those teams. They're really young. I thought they were one of the teams that could contend.
Yeah.
But now they're down 2-0.
I mean, the playoffs pretty much shows every team who they really are.
Right.
I would have liked to seen the Celtics go up against the Warriors towards the finals because I think the Celtics match up really well with the Warriors, and we saw that throughout the season, which that would have been nice to see with Thomas just, and Curry going at it.
I mean, they would have had to play in the NBA Finals just because they're out of different conferences, but it would have been certainly interesting just because, I mean, it's probably going to be a Golden State Cleveland again. And
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone wants to watch that.
Yeah. And the Celtics kept it interesting during the season. They went into like double overtime, I think it was.
Yeah.
So I like to see that in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, it's just my thing is it's really hard. Like, it's one thing to win one game against the
Right.
Warriors. It's hard to win 4.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Warriors and Rockets, we already said
Yeah.
that the Warriors are going to win that
Yeah.
series. Not much to be said there. Steph Curry is injured, and they're still playing well.
Yeah.
So, they might as well just let Steph rest. I don't know why there's even a question that he would play. That's just stupid. Spurs and Grizzlies, we already talked about that. That's just the Spurs are just destroying them. It's my Grizzlies, I'm sorry. The Thunder and the Mavericks.
That's a tricky one.
So the Mavericks won game 2, Thunder won game 1.
Yeah.
But I really think the Thunder, they just have that team.
I would like the Thunder to go all the way. I wanted them to really win it when they were there years ago. But I would like Durant and Westbrook to get their opportunity again.
Yeah, and I think those two together are just so good.
Yeah.
And, Kevin Durant is a once-in-a-generation type player. And Russell Westbrook is turning into that type of guy.
Yeah.
He's like a triple-double machine. He's like right behind.
He just doesn't stop.
Yeah, exactly. He's like right behind Draymond Green
Yeah.
for like triple-doubles. Like he's right up there with them. So hopefully I don't really care that much, but I'd like to see the Thunder win that one. Clippers, Trailblazers. This one is probably the one I care about the least because I don't really know that much about the teams. I know
The Clippers just like much like the Pistons. I just feel like they just don't finish. They just
Well, also they're coming out of a tough conference now, especially.
Yeah.
There's like no motivation to win in that.
They
conference.
have the pieces though. The Clippers have a good coach. They have the players.
Yeah.
Chris Paul, Griffin, DeAndre. So they just got to get it together.
We'll see what happens with them. Whatever. I guess that's it. So that's your NBA wrap up for us. We pretty much just picked the favorites. We don't have any actual knowledge, I guess.
Yeah.
No, but I think that should shape up pretty well. We'll see what happens there. MLB, I'll just touch on a couple stories because we're running really close to time right now. One big thing.
Those 5 bases.
What?
Was it the 5 stolen bases or whatever?
Oh, yeah. So I want to talk about the Reds. The Reds were playing. I'm not really sure who they were playing, but they stole 5 bases in 1 inning, which I'm pretty sure was checked back to 1920, and they couldn't find another instance.
It's a little baseball history for you.
So that was baseball history, which is pretty crazy. I just want to acknowledge that.
It's crazy that it came from the Reds.
And the craziest part was, the Reds are terrible. But the craziest part was, I'm pretty sure that Billy Hamilton, who's like probably the fastest player in the league at this point, didn't steal any of them. So it was like crazy. But I don't know. I guess that's what happens sometimes. It must have been the pitcher must have been throwing, been slow to the plate or something. And then I don't know. There's not too much else. The Braves and the Twins both started 0-9. I know the Braves won 4 straight. I think they lost last night. So that was kind of a story just because like that was almost historically bad how bad they were to start the season. But I think there hasn't really been too many big stories. Bryce Harper is killing it again.
Well, the best in the MLB.
If you ask me, he's probably going to win MVP again.
Yeah.
And
he just does it with
win that team, that division by himself.
He has so much style to his game. It's ridiculous. The thing is that he's good and he knows that he's good. So he plays with that attitude, and I think it just makes baseball like exciting.
And the thing about Bryce Harper was he's one of these people who came up as like a highly touted prospect. They were doing issues of Sports Illustrated when he was in high school.
So he's living up to his hype.
And he's living up to everything and like shattering that.
And he is young, so we have a lot to see.
He's only 23.
Yeah.
So it's pretty insane what he's been able to do. I'm obviously not a Nationals fan, but like I can sit here and acknowledge the fact that he is like and he's putting himself in that conversation where it used to be like, well, if you're going to start a team, you take Mike Trout over Bryce Harper.
You take Harper.
Now it's like you got to think about it.
Yeah.
It's not like just definitely Harper, but it's definitely like a conversation.
You take Harper.
You might take Harper, and at this point, Trout's struggling. So Harper,
Keep it up.
Yeah. So I guess that'll wrap up the podcast for this week. Orlando, did you want to say anything?
Oh, that's right. We got some terrible news today that Prince just so happened to pass away. Me and Matt both love music.
Yes. Yeah, it's a side note.
Yeah.
But we definitely wanted to acknowledge it, and we want
Yeah.
to send our condolences out to the family and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Or bad stuff, but it's unfortunate, and he was, a musical mastermind. So
Yeah.
it's sad to see him go. But so that'll wrap up the podcast. Please, on YouTube and SoundCloud, all that good stuff, like us, comment, do whatever. Let us know what you think about what we're doing here, and we'll be talking to you next week.